Today I'm going to show you how to sew a vintage fabric Christmas tree. You can use this as table decor during the holidays, as a pillow, or whatever you want to use it for. The pattern pieces that I had created for these are printable, and they're below in the link in the description box. Or if you're watching from our website, alohasewingcompany.com, welcome and sew along. The only materials you need to make this are some fiberfill stuffing or whatever you want to use to stuff your tree, and your fabric. The fabric that you need is going to be listed in that PDF document, and here's how I do mine all at the same time when I cut. I get all 4 of my fabrics that I'm going to use, and I lay them right on top of each other with the folds aligned on the bottom. All of your fabric should be folded because you're going to cut your pattern piece out and lay it on the fold of this fabric and trace all the way around your pattern piece. Then you're going to cut it out. Again, I do it all 4 at one time to make this super fast and easy. Now you want to open up your fabric on one of your trees, and you see the crease down the middle. Don't iron that out. You want that as a sewing guide for later. Get 2 of your Christmas tree fabric pieces and lay them with the right sides together. That means the pretty sides of the fabric should be kissing. Now we're going to line these up. I like to start at the tip of the tree to make sure it's nice and even, and then I pin or clip all the way around the entire tree, and then we're going to sew around the entire tree, but we're going to leave a big opening on the bottom. Remember, we are not going to iron out that fold that we have a crease down the middle of our trees because we're going to use that as a sewing guide. I'm also going to place 2 pins or clips right here to remind me that I'm not going to sew across this area at the middle of the bottom. On the pattern pieces that you print out, I put little marks so that you can mark those spots if you need to. Now we're ready to take this over to our sewing machine. For our beginner sewers, we're going to start sewing right at the opening that we're leaving at the bottom, go all the way around the tree, and stop at the other edge of where you're leaving that opening. When you're going around corners of your fabric, leave the needle of your machine in the fabric, lift your presser foot, and rotate your fabric in the direction you need to sew. Put your presser foot down and keep sewing until you get to your next corner. Then you're going to repeat the same process. Needle in the fabric, lift the presser foot, rotate your fabric, and then put it back down and keep sewing. I'm showing this for our beginner sewers. Our experienced sewers obviously know how to do this, but we all start somewhere. Once you finish sewing all the way around your tree, except for that whole opening at the bottom, go to each of the tip corners of your tree and trim off the seam allowance of those corners. You want to do this so that when we flip this right side out, those corners aren't bulky and they lay nice and pointy. You're also going to go to the corners of your tree that's kind of inverted corners and make a few snips with your scissors right here where I'm going to show you now. So that way, when we're flipping this right side out, you have nice slits in there and it won't pucker that fabric in that area. I've only done 1. I would suggest you doing a couple. And again, make sure you don't clip through your stitches, just kind of close to them. Now we are ready to flip our fabric right side out. So go ahead and go to that whole opening we left at the bottom and put your hand inside. Grab the tip of your tree from the inside and pull it right side out. Use your finger or a chopstick once you have this flipped right side out and smoothen out your seams and go ahead and poke out your corners, but make sure you don't poke too hard because you don't want to go through your stitches. Once you have finished doing this one, get the remaining 2 pieces of your Christmas tree fabric and follow the same steps to assemble that one. The next thing that we're going to do is grab our polyfill, and this part is actually optional. I like to go ahead when I have them sewn like this and put a polyfill into each of the corners of the tree, but not at the very tip of the tree. I do that because sometimes it's kind of hard to stuff into those corners once we have this tree sewn together to make it dimensional. You don't have to do it this way. I just like to do it this way to make it a little bit easier to go with that fiber fill into those corners of my tree. Don't put the fiber fill or whatever fill you're using down the middle of your tree. You just want it in those tips of your tree on both the left and the right side, just a little bit. And if you're finding that your filling is moving around and shifting in those corners, you can always pin it down in place if you want to, or clip it. Now you want to go to the opening at the bottom of your 2 trees that you should have now. You want to flip the fabric inwards about 3/8 of an inch. That's the seam allowance we're using for this entire project. It's 3/8 of an inch. And you're going to do that for the top and bottom fabric so that it lines nicely with the seam on the outside so it's nice and seamless. Then go ahead and pin or clip along the sides, but not in the very middle. We're going to sew that area in just a few minutes. Do this for both of your fabric trees that you have assembled now. Now get one of your trees, laying which direction you want to, it doesn't matter. And then you're going to get the other fabric tree that you've already done, and you're going to lay it with the right sides of the fabric together, like I'm doing here. And again, it really doesn't matter if it's right or wrong side, it's just whatever side you want your fabric prints to be touching. If you're not using different fabrics, then it really doesn't matter. Start aligning it by aligning the top of your tree so that way the rest of the tree lays nice and symmetrical. And then you're just going to pin or clip it together all the way around, except for down there at the bottom. Now we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and you're going to start at the top of your tree and sew a line all the way down the tree middle. You're going to do this using the fold of your fabric as a guide. That's why we did not iron out that folded crease that we cut the fabric on. Here is mine all sewn. You can see now we have the 4 different parts of our tree because the middle piece is sewn. And we're going to be working with the bottom. You have 4 hole openings at the bottom now, and we left these open so that you can get your fiber fill stuffing or whatever stuffing you're using, and by the handfuls, measure with your heart, and go ahead and stuff the rest of your fabric tree. You're going to do this through each of the 4 openings until you have it as fluffy as you want it to. And make sure as you're stuffing that you start stuffing and pushing it towards the top. If you have some kind of tool that you can use to push that stuffing into the corners of your tree, it will make it easier for you, but you can also use your hand. Now we're going to go to each of those 4 hole openings at the bottom, and just like we did before, you're going to push that fabric inwards on the front and back sides about 3/8 of an inch on each of those 4 openings, and then you can pin or clip this in place and then sew those openings closed. You can either bring it to your machine and stitch it closed that way. It can be really fiddly when you do that because you have that polyfill and it's a lot to fit underneath your machine foot, but you can absolutely do that. Or you can hand stitch it closed using a blind ladder stitch. So go ahead and close all 4 openings, and then you're going to stitch those closed like I've done here. You can see I've done this one, this one, this one, and this one, and I sewed them separately, not at the same time. And then you're finished. Decorate it however you want to or leave it as is. This pattern piece comes in 2 sizes. This is the more jumbo size, but I also have a regular size, and these patterns are printable. Print them out and go ahead and get sewing right now if you want to. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have fun sewing along with me. Please, please, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel to see all of our easy sewing patterns as they're released. Visit AlohaSewingCompany.com, or the link is down below in the description box on YouTube to see all of our super easy sewing patterns that you can print at home so you can start to sew faster. We make sewing patterns for literally everything, from baby items, kids' clothes, decorations, holiday stuff and gifts, bags and more. And before you go, mahalo.